I mean, I was on Modern Abraham. He was sitting waiting the red. And he was slow enough to
Wait
get
another
this in, but
minute.
I actually started
The edition of the Gemara that you have, is that the Vishnantam?
This one is Shinantam.
That's what I
Very
thought.
good. Very good. They're around.
They have it in paperback.
Yeah, I was
too.
going to say that it's
Yeah,
in
they do.
paperback. I've got a couple in paperback. I brought Gemara with me.
So he learned with me yesterday. Gemara? Okay. Gemara and Sukkah, was Zion says that if you take off your tefillin to defecate, you make another bracha. So we're not familiar with all this stuff because we take our tefillin off all day.
Right.
So that's why they say he made birkas tefillin when he put them back.
When he put them back on?
Huh?
Because he was.
Well,
Because it
if you recall, 2 days ago.
Yeah, we saw it in the Gemara.
Yeah, and it says he makes a bracha.
Right, but it didn't
So
say.
Rashi there says he made birkas and Torah, but all the money of the other Meforshim said he said birkas tefillin.
Sure.
So I didn't understand why on the script Shimon that it was generous enough with his time to learn through it yesterday.
Mhm.
I guess Asher Yatzir
Mel is not.
Mel
Mel is not here again this morning.
Mel was exposed to COVID.
Oh.
Louis has COVID,
And
Mel was sitting next to him.
So he went to get.
So I guess.
Yeah, no, he's got to stay out away
we took
5.
him yesterday.
He went to.
shots.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't give him the COVID because he said that he was exposed.
Right.
So, but he got the RSV.
Yeah. And he has to stay away 5 days.
Yeah.
Minimum. Yeah.
So he's not here.
Yeah. Okay, so we know that, but we're not going to check on Zev. Okay, I'm going to start the learning sponsors. A year of learning, friends of Malaskotsky, Moshe Zelig ben Mordechai, Martin Lippman family in memory of his wife, Malka Chana Pinkas, friends of Herb Jeremiah, Svi ben Zev, friends of Sam Coleman, Shmuel ben Yaakov, friends of Gideon Lazinski, Mordechai Shlomo ben Meir, Bella and David Adler in memory of her father, Eliyahu ben Yosef Cohen. Those who were inspired by our Rebbetzin Emerita, Sheila Shapiro, Sarah Esther Malka, but Mishum Yisachar. Gail and Leslie Kaplan in memory of their parents. Mushka Shprinza bat Yosef Chaim Bechava, Hanan ben Moshe Eliezer Vechana, Pesha bat Shmuel Yitzchak Halevi Vitzipora, Yisra ben Yoel Moshe Cohen Vechana. Rexford Friends of Gladys Sherman, Guta bat Meir, Michael Klein and Friends of Judah Klein, Yehuda Tzvi ben Chaim, Marsha Brana in memory of her husband, Harav Yerachmiel ben Shmuel. Month of Learning by Charlie Gelfenstein in memory of his mother, Dacia Gilbert Meir Halevi. Also by Charlie Gelfenstein in memory of his father, Meir ben Yaakov. Reuven and Susan Podolsky in memory of his mother, Fradel Bat Shraga Feivel. A Week of Learning by Marcia Federbush in memory of her father, Menachem Mendel ben Shlomo. Friends of Bernie Krutz on the occasion of his second Bar Mitzvah. Today is the 20th. We have a day of learning by Susan Fruchter Kramer and Shelley Kramer in memory of her father, Moshe ben Yechiel Mechel. Also by Marvin and Hadassah Bienenfeld in memory of his mother, Gutka Tova bat Avram David. And Shamas have an Aliyah, Crank Rafia, Velti Yeshua Shematlia, Chol Israel Good Bench.
Okay, so today's daf is one of the most famous places we've been delighted for years. But simply, we have the following problem. We all know that we learned about Chatzin as Exoros, that we have a tradition that when an animal walks and instead of trampling something, which would be regal and paying full damages, that's clear, it rather causes stones to kick up, and then those stones go and damage something else. And that's what we call koko. That's something where the animal, rather than damaging directly with its body, damages with a force generated by its body. So there we have a tradition that you pay half damage. But we learned yesterday that's according to the rabbis. But that's according to the rabbis. But Sumchos actually has a different tradition about the same point. And he learns that when the animal damages by a force with its body, the tradition is coming to tell me that you have to pay full damages. Don't think otherwise. That you have to pay full damages. Good. That's what we learned so far. Now today we have three incredible queries about this law. Okay. Now, by the way, you remember? I'm sure you remember earlier. Okay. Now we have three queries about this law. One of them is that we don't know what the law is if instead of the stone that's kicked up by the animal going and breaking something else, what if the thing that's broken would be the stone itself? Well, what's the case? In other words, the animal's walking, and rather than kicking up a stone that goes and hits a pot, he kicks up the pot, and the pot rolls someplace and breaks. So now, what happens when the pot is when the stone that does the damage is the thing that gets damaged? You understand? What's the rule? Why is that? Because we're not sure. When it was the stone, it was irrelevant, but when it's the pot, we don't know. We're going to see. We don't know if the damage is really figured by where it started, since it's now divided, or where it ended. If it's where it started, well, then it's regular. It's going to pay full damages. If it's where it ended, then it's stoned and it pays half damages. Question one. Question two. Even though at the beginning of the Masechta we made it clear, because Rav Papa had no doubt, if you remember, Rav Papa was clear that half damages from stones pays mina aliyah. It's not limited by the body of the it's not limited by the body of the damager, by the value, but rather what? It's from the estate. You pay generally from the best of your possession. But the truth is, today it's a question. Rav Papa was sure, but we're not sure. Rav is not sure. We don't know whether it's similar to here. It's similar to the other half payment, which is what? Goring, which pays from the body, or is it similar to the other damage done by walking, which is regal, and you pay from the estate? That's question two. A third question is like this. Again, since it's a little bit, it looks kind of like Karen, like damage done by goring. So we don't know. Does Chetzi Nezek Tzroas, this law, does it also have a case where it matures just like an ox that gores the first 3 times, pays half damages, and then pays full? Maybe Chetzi Nezek Tzroas, if it was worn 3 times for kicking up stuff and breaking, maybe ready the 4th time, it has to pay full damages. That's it. So those are the 3 queries that we have today about the rules of Chetzi Nezek Tzroas, and we're gonna keep really cycling a number of the same pieces of evidence over and over again. And the problem is that each piece appears to be conclusive at one point, then we can always show that it's not conclusive by analysis. Okay, that's pretty much what we're going to do today. Let's take a look, and let's see where we're going to start. We're starting on the end of yesterday's page, from the words. Where is it? Yeah, we're going to start Tanya, and the Gemara here. Well, I'll tell you which one, two. Tana Rabbanim. No, Tana Rabbanim. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines from the bottom. Tana Rabbanim. It's Tana Rabbanim, yeah. Tana Rabbanim. Now, this is a classic. The Gemara brings the exhibit before the discussion. What I mean to say, this price is really needed in order to solve a problem. But we first introduce the brisa, then the problem, and then it'll come up later as evidence. Okay? Tana Rabbanim, we learned the following case, and it's really a bit of an enigma. Kidus, okay, when the chicken is hopping up and down, ain't a muad, it's not forewarned. Now that can mean anything. Not forewarned can mean it doesn't pay full damages. Not forewarned can mean it doesn't pay from the estate. It can mean a million things. But that's what it says. Okay, some people say no, Hari the muad. So we're going to read it simply. The first opinion holds what it's not muad, it pays half damages. And the second opinion is what it's called muad, it's forewarned and it pays full damages. Says the Gemara, this price makes no sense. Hidu salkadaita. Could it really be in the case of hopping, okay, that you're going to pay half damages? That's like any other animal walking. It's completely normal. It should pay full damages. Therefore, we reject that reading. Ella, we have to say, even though it's not stated explicitly, we must assume that the circumstances are as follows. Ella lav hidus vehetis, isn't it really where it was hopping, and it caused the utensil to go someplace else? Well, that's the argument. So it hit it. The utensil went someplace else. We don't know. The Mar Sabar, where the second opinion holds what Basar Mikaras Linam. We follow the beginning of this process, and that was done with the chicken's body. Okay, and therefore what? It's muad, and it's done. We follow the beginning, and therefore what? And that's the second opinion. You have to pay full damages. That's why he said what? It's muad. He meant muad that what? It pays full damages because it was done like regal. Umar Sabar. No, in In this case, where the thing itself is what rolled away and broke, you have to go after the breaking, and it's considered a force exhibited by the animal, and it's not muad, it pays half damages. Okay, the Gemara says, no, I don't have to say that at all. He says, oh, one second, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, I read the wrong place. Yeah, I'm so sorry, I read the wrong place. You were confused, you're right, I made a mistake. Tana Rabbanan, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, I'm sorry. Go back to the beginning, don't worry, we'll be fine. Okay, Tana Rabbanan, we learned. Tani Golim Shai Mechatatin, I'm sorry, my eye just moved away. We learned, if the chickens were pecking at a rope, that's the case, at a rope, okay? There was a rope that holding a bucket, and the chickens were pecking at it. The nifsak chevel, and the rope broke, okay, and the bucket fell. And the bucket broke. They have to pay full damages. Now, obviously, you can see we don't know is it full damages for the rope, full damages for the bucket. What's going on? Boy, Rabba. Now we're coming up. I'm very, very sorry. I'm so sorry. Boy, Rabba. Rabba asked the first theoretical question. When it comes to half damages of stones, we have to answer this question. Dorsal kli below sharatu. An animal walked on a utensil, didn't break it, but it caused it to move, and it's but it caused it to shoot out and to roll to another place. Vinishbar, and it broke in that place. Mahu, what's the law? That's we don't know. Basumikara does leave. In such a case, where the stone and the object damaged are the same, should we follow the beginning of the action where his body touched it, the goofa, and that's damage done by the body? It's like regular, and you pay full damages. Oh, Dilma Basa, Tabi Mana Azlina. Maybe no, maybe we followed where the object broke. Okay, we follow where the object broke. And you have to look at it as a case of what? Of kicking up stones, and it's really done by the force of the animal, and it pays half damages. So now the Gemara says, Tifshot me the Rabbah. Now you should solve it from Rabbah. Rabbah made a famous statement. Okay, and that is what? Rabbah, who was the Rebbe, he said the following. He said, Dama Rabbah, he said, Zara Klimi Rosh Hagag. Let's say one guy threw a utensil off of the roof. Here, one guy threw somebody else. We're going to say it that way simple. One guy threw somebody else's utensil off the roof. He did damage. It was going to break when it hit the ground. But before it hit the ground, another person came, Ushara hit it with a baseball bat. No, he broke it before it hit the ground. Potter, even though that guy smashed it with a bat, he's still exempt. Why is that? He's still exempt. Well, okay. Because we say to the guy who threw it, sorry, you can't get out of paying. The guy who hit it with a bat broke a broken object. And so therefore he says clearly who has to pay? The guy who threw it off the roof. Even though the actual breaking was done by what? Was the guy that hit it with a bat? But it doesn't matter because the thing that was thrown off the roof was going to be broken no matter what. And therefore, so you see clearly that when it comes to an action that's broken into two, it breaks one place and it starts another place. Who do you follow? The beginning. So you should solve Rava's problem. In our case, where the animal kicked up the keli and the keli broke someplace else, we should follow the beginning of the action. It should pay full damages like Rego. Says the Gemara, no, the Rabba Pshitala, you're right. Rabba, it was obvious to Rabba, the Rabba may violate, but Rabba is in that. Therefore, Rabba has a right to say, listen, you can't do it. Often I'll say something, and somebody will say to me, but Rabbi Goldman said this, Rabbi Weiss said this, Rabbi Shapiro said this. I tell the people, listen, I said, it's hard enough for me to be responsible for what I say. You want me to be responsible for what everybody else says? And instead, you can't force one person according to the opinion of another. That's what Rabbah thought, but Rabbah has a right to have a query. Okay, Toshma, says the Gemara. Says he to come, I'll try and bring you a proof. I'm sorry, this is the part I read before, so let's just get it simply. We learn in the Brisa, we learn in the Brisa, Hidus, if the animal is hopping. Ain't no muad, and it's not considered to be forewarned, and it pays only half damages by the damage it does. Some people say no, how's a muad? What it is forewarned and it pays full damage. Now, what's the case? If it's the case where it hopped on something and broke it, the Gemara says he does salkadaita. Understand? Can anybody have a debate about hopping on something and breaking it, whether it's half damages or full damages? That's rego. That's the normal thing. And you obviously pay full damages. The Brisa clearly can't mean what it says simply. Elalav, you're forced to say what he's the hintis. That's why he was hopping, and what it caused the object to roll someplace else, and it broke someplace else. Oh, that's Rava's case. And therefore, if that's the argument in the Brisa, what happened? Mar, The one who said what? That it is forewarned. Okay, Savar Basami Karslin. He says you follow the beginning of the action, and therefore it's his body and it's regular. And he pays full damages. Umar and the first opinion, Savar, no, it was Basar Taba and you follow the breaking of the utensil, and therefore what it's done by the force of the animal, and it pays half damages. Must be that your query is the very argument of the Bryce. Like I said, nah. That's not I don't have to say that at all. You can't solve it. Why? Robin knew that Bryson. The 80s. It's like this. It's where the animal never touched. Okay, it didn't touch the. It's not where it kicked up the utensil like you learned it. No, it kicked up stones. It kicked up regular old stones. The classical case, and those stones broke the kalim. So what could the argument be? Whether it's muad or not. So here the word muad is going to be used again to tell half damage or full damage is what? This is the classic argument of Sumchas and the rabbi Kamifla they're arguing the classic argument. The one who says what? That it's muad, that it pays full damages, holds like what? Sumchas. That was his tradition by stones. And the one who said half damage, who says it's not muad, he says it's half damage, is like the tradition of the rabbis by stones. Okay, so no, okay, we still stuck. I says, Tashma, come on, I'll still find a way to solve Rabba's query. Let's go back to Exhibit A, the Bryce that we started with. The chickens were pecking at this rope, okay, holding a bucket. The nifsak and the rope was severed, and the bucket broke. You have to pay full damages, so that we understand must be what? It must be what? The rope broke, the bucket rolled away and broke someplace else. So it started at the pecking, and the breaking was someplace else. It's exactly Robert's case. And still we said what? So you pay full damages, must be what? Shema Minoch, you can hear Basami Karzli. See that you follow the beginning of the action and not the end. Good try, says the Gemara. Says, get out of here. He says, that's what you have to say. What? That you have to say that we follow the beginning. It's quite possible that we really follow the end. It's no proof. It's no proof at all. You know why? Because you think what you're paying full damages for the bucket. No, we really for the bucket we would pay half damages. When it said full damages, explain it to me talking about what? The rope. He also broke a rope. He's paying full damages for the rope which he touched with his body, and for the bucket he's going to pay what? Half damages because because it's stones, and we follow the breaking and not the beginning. Well, I said, one second. You can't say that. You can't tell me that the full damage you're paying is for the rope. Well, that's goring. This is not eating. What animals eat ropes? This is not eating. Whenever you do something weird, that's goring. Eating a rope, here, chewing a block of wood or whatever it is, that's goring. That's not eating. Okay, and therefore what? Okay, and it has to be what did you pay? Therefore you pay what? Half damages. So you're wrong. So it must be the full damage was going on the bucket, and I'm right. Nah. He says, get out of here. He says, don't worry. He's the most Melisha. Why is an animal pecking a rope? Because it's nuts. It's pecking the rope because it's full of dough. And he's trying to eat it. That's already normal. Trying to eat the dough, and it can pay full damages. But I says, what are you talking about? Get out of here. How can you tell me that the focus is on the rope? It says the bucket broke. It's clearly talking about the payment for the bucket, not the payment for the rope. How can you tell me talking about the rope? It said the bucket and the bucket broke. So clearly talking about the bucket. You can't get out of it. So if you're paying full damages for the bucket, it must be that you follow the end and not the beginning. So the Gemara says, don't worry. Eli says, don't worry. I still can stop you from proving the point that we follow the end. Why? Because I can tell you what, the Bryce is really talking about what? You're right, you're paying full damages for the bucket, like you said, but you still can't prove that you follow the beginning. Why? You can't prove we were paying full for the bucket. So I'm going to just say backwards a minute ago, but you'll straighten it out. Okay, why? Because it's quite possible that we really follow the end. Why are we paying full damages? I'll tell you why. Because even if we follow the end, we could say what? Okay, Sumchasi, because this Bryce is following Sumchas. Yes, we pay full damages, but not because we follow the beginning. We pay full damages because we follow the end, but the end, according to Sumchas, is what? Is full damages. So that's nothing, okay? He says you always pay full damage. So from here, you're so far, you can't prove it. I says, get out of here, because he says, you want to tell me when it said you pay full for the bucket. It's really following the end and it's following Sumchas. Ema Seifa, how am I going to learn the end of this very same Bryce, which we've never seen? But here's the end. It says, Nitaz mimenu shever, when that bucket broke, a piece shot off, the nafal kli acher v'shavra, and then it broke a second utensil. Well, no, the bucket broke the first bucket broke a second bucket, and it says explicitly in this Bryce al arishim masalik nezik shalom. For the first bucket, you're going to pay full damages. The alachor masalik nezik nezik, and the other one you're going to pay half damages. Wait a second. If you're telling me the reason I paid full damages on the first bucket was because we follow the end, and it's sumchas. He says misli chatzi nezek. He doesn't hold half damages. Why are you paying half damages in the second bucket? It was two cases of what, of stones, and both buckets should be what? Should be full damages. The chitamen, if you want to tell me, no, don't worry. He says one stones is something, but two stones is a different rule. Shani le sumchas be nezek kochel kochel. That sumchas makes the difference between a force and the force of a force. For the force, you pay what? You pay full damages, stone. But for the force of a force, for stones that came from stone, what? He says you're going to pay half damages. Okay, he says it can't be. Why? You can't tell me that. Why? But the boy. I'm going to explain this in a minute. But the boy, come on, get out, because we know we have a tradition. The Ravashi, our master, Ravashi said he asked the following question. Koch kocho de sumchas. He said, according to sumchas, who holds that you pay full damages for stones, the strength of an animal, the strength of a strength, according to sumchas, kocho dame, does it have the same rule and it still pays full damages? Or lavka kocho dame, or the strength of a strength not, and it's only going to pay half damages. So he was in doubt about that. According to you, tifshat lay the lav kocho dame. And you should be able to solve it from here. Now, this is back to front. I've explained this several times. There are times that regardless of the fact that a given human being doesn't have to force another person, but it's different when that person is our tradition. When we've checked out the tradition, that Ravashi's doubt was a valid doubt, and we say that this price can't be read in contradiction to that person's doubt. Now, I want to tell you, I read this story. It's true that, they have Talmudim stories, but I read this inside. There was a famous case by Rabbi Feinstein where, after the Second World War, we had all these terrible cases, many terrible cases of wives that disappeared, husbands that disappeared. There's terrible problems knowing who's married, who's not married, who can remarry. So a certain woman came to Rabbi Feinstein with a horrible problem. Her husband had been missing in Europe after the war. And the Beis Din that she went to, Paskin, that he is dead and she's allowed to remarry. And she remarried her husband, everything was fine. And she said, now her first husband just came back. What did we do? My husband showed up, my first husband. Though it's a big thing, Feinstein was involved. And after the original case, he called the woman back. Listen to this. He called the woman back and he said, you're lying. He says, you're lying. The man that you said is your husband returning is a new man that you just decided that you like and you want to marry, you want to leave your husband. And you made up a story and said it's your first husband. You're not telling the truth. And she broke down. She says, that's correct. She said, I'm lying. You're right. I fell in love with this guy. I want to leave my husband. And I made up the story. She said, how do you know? He said, I'll tell you how I know. He says, I'll tell you how I know. He says, I considered the Beis Din, the rabbi who's Beis Din, originally allowed you to remarry. And I thought about myself, he said, and all the cases that I had where I allowed a woman to remarry, I never had a case like a travesty where after I allowed the woman to remarry, the dead man showed up. It never happened to me. And knowing who I am, he says, and knowing how great the rabbi who's Beis Din originally allowed you to be remarried, he says, I was sure, he said, that if I've never had a reversal on a decision like this, I'm sure that he never had, he never had a reversal in this. And I knew you were lying, and that's what she was. That's the one. So there's a point where we know the authority of a person. We know that they wouldn't have left this stone unturned. There's certain things that you know, and that's the thing. So sometimes in the Gemara, we'll go back to front. You understand? Because this rabbi was in doubt, we know that he checked out this Mishnah so thoroughly, or this Brisa, that he can't go that way. That happens. That happens sometimes. The same thing happened with the Noda Yehuda. The famous Noda Yehuda. He was the rabbi of Prague. He was out of this world. You don't need my word for it. Take his book and read it. You'll see that it's on black and white. Sometimes have to tell, he's a great rabbi. Read his book. You'll know he's a great rabbi. You don't need anyone to tell you. Read the book. So the Noda Yehuda, one time they came to him also with a shaila. They told him a whole story about the woman that her husband's missing and this and that. He looked up. He said, "You made it up. It never happened." And they said, "You're right. How did you know?" He said, "I'll tell you why." He said, "Because I'm in a position." He was. Where all the Jewish people turned to him. All the weightiest problems came to another Jew. He said, and every time they ask me a question, because Klal Yisrael has to have the merit to have their questions answered, I always get siyata d'shmaya. I feel like the help from the Shemaim to help me answer the question. He said, you asked me the question, I felt nothing. He said, I realized it's not a real case, and it was true. They admitted it. There's certain things that you can know. Okay, bye, Rabba. Okay, so now we ended this. So we're stuck elalav. So we're stuck now. Okay, so we're still stuck. So what's going to be the case? Okay, so what's the reason? What is the reason? So let's say since I see that Rav Ashi was not in doubt. What didn't he solve it? Must be what elalav must be what, since he didn't solve it. Rabbanan he must be from Rav Ashi's lack of doubt, a presence of doubt. We know that he reads this price of Rabbanan he. It's not Sumchas. You're wrong. It can't be. Rav Ashi, our teacher, our master, told us that the tradition of this brisa is not sumchas, but rabbanani. It's the rabbis who hold you pay half damages. Ushmamino, since it's half damages. Okay, so now we're back to the original proof. Since you're paying full damages for the bucket, and it's the rabbis who hold you pay half damages. There's only one way to explain it. You follow the beginning of the action. It was his body, and it's not half damages of stones. Amar Bibi Barabaya, he says nothing doing. You still can't prove it. Why? Because it's quite possible that the chicken kept nudging the bucket the whole way. Okay, and really what? And it was really what? That even though it broke, it's really what? It's following the body because they literally were nudging it the whole way. It's not a question of where was delayed action. They were nudging it the whole way, and it's their body, and they go for damage. Okay, that's the end of query one. Boy, Rava asked the following question, a new query. He says what? About half damages of stones. Chatzi nezek tros, the half damages of stones. Migufa mishalim, does he pay from his body? Omi ali mishalim, or does he pay from the estate? Remember, we know why is that? Because we don't know what to compare it to. Migufa mishalim, do you pay half damages of stone? Oh, so I explained it before.
No, this is the same argument whether it's kanas or
well, yes, but we'll see. No, but yes, but remember, if it's the same argument we had originally in the beginning of the Gemara. Remember, we said Rav Papa was sure that it was Tashlum, exactly. So now, so he said, why? What's the reason for the doubt? Because look, I don't know what to compare it to. Should I compare it to its payment or to the nature of the damage? He said, should I say it pays from the body? It's limited. Why? Because the only other case that I have of half damages, which is Karen Goring. Well, Goring doesn't pay from the estate; it pays from the body. So I compare it to its payment. Oh, Dilma. Or on the other hand, what? Maybe I should say no, it pays from the estate because I compare it to the type of damage. I don't find a normal damage, which is the case here. It's like Rego, because what Rego and Shane, all normal damages, what pay from the estate, and they're not limited by the body. So where should I make the comparison? Tashma says the Gemara. Okay, let's look at this price that we mentioned before. We said hidus ain't a muad. We said hopping is not forewarned. The Yeshomrim, the second opinion says what? How is a muad? It is forewarned. So now, what I use the word for? It's the same thing we said before. Come on, get out of here. Hidus al kadaita. Can you read it simply if they're hopping? It's so clearly damage done by the body. Of course, you have to pay full damage. Elalav hidus v'hitis isn't the case where it's hopping and it caused the object to roll someplace and break. Where it's really what? It's really stones. Okay, and now we're okay, and we're reading that it's half damage. By the way, at this point, despite the previous query, and here's the argument: the one who said that it's not forewarned, he's using the word muad to mean what? To talk about the nature of the payment. It's forewarned in the sense that what it pays from the body. It's the part. It's not forewarned. So you mean say in the sense that it doesn't pay from the estate, it pays from the body. The one says it's forewarned. He's talking about the nature of the payment. He says what? That he pays it from the general estate. So maybe Rava's question is really what was the debate of this price? Like, where's it? No, it's not. That's not the argument. Again, I can say it's the simple, and it's an easier reading. It's the simple argument of the rabbis and so on. The one who says that hopping, which means what? That it rolled it and it broke, and it's really a case of throws. The one who said that it's not forewarned holds like the rabbis. It pays half damages. Forewarned means what? Not forewarned, half damages. The one who holds forewarned means what? Full damages holds like what? Like sumchas. And that's an easier reading, so you have no way to say that the argument of this query of whether half damages of stone pays from the estate of the body is not the argument of the rabbis of the price. Tashma, come out again. I'll try and solve the problem. Let me solve the query. We learned the Caliph Shinal. This is a mission of rabbis. HaKalif Shinal Charara, it's a little later on. A dog went in and he grabbed a cake off the coals. It's a cake that's cooked on the coals, and it has a little coal on it. So he grabbed a hot cake. Mamish grabbed the hot cake to eat it. with a coal on it. And he went where the standing grain was. He ate the hot cake. Okay, but because he dragged with the cake the coal, he burnt down the gadish. Now you remember the fire has to go from the coal to the standing grain. It says the grain pile. Look, it says for the hot cake he has to pay full damage. That's eating. That's clear. That's normal. But for the grain, he only pays half damages. Now why is it half damages? My time, but what's the reason? Lav mishum the habilut source must be what you look at his stones because what? Because the fire had to travel from the coal to the grain. But and even though it's considered stones, but and we learned now. Careful, we learned a brisa about this Mishnah. It's not the Mishnah. There's a brisa that interpreted this Mishnah. And notice language Tani, those people who were there on Shabbos, that it's a later. You said according to that language, okay, and it was explained to us by the people who explained Meshalim Chatzinezik Migufo. It's half damage, and where does half damage from? From the body. So we see that our brisa that explains our Mishnah told us that the half damages of stones, it pays from the body. Solve the problem. This says, get out of here. But Tizra, does that make any sense? He says, how can you say such a thing? Now, this is hard. We don't know this, but the same brisa continues. We didn't know this. We're going to hear it now. How can you say what you're saying? He says, you're talking about what? You want to tell me the reason you pay half damages for the grain is because it's stones? It's not true. He says, because we're going to learn. Rabbi Lezer says after that, he says that you pay full damages. Now, remember, we learned that the half damages are where from that the damages on the grain is paid from where? From the body. Now, Rabbi Lezer said you pay full damages, and it'd be full damages from the body. Have you ever in your life heard of paying full damages from the body? There's no such thing. It can't be. Since there's an opinion it's full damage, you can't say that it's a case of stones and it's paying from the body. Ella, you're forced to say what? Kagon the shani bal bakachelas. That half damages is not stones at all. That half damages is goring. Any strange, any uncommon damage is called gore. It's like goring. And what happened? This animal, he picked the coal up with his mouth. This dog picked the coal up with his mouth and he put it onto the grain. And therefore, why is it half damages? Because it's weird. It's Karen. Okay, Rabbi Lazar. Okay, and Rabbi Lazar says you pay full damages. When do you pay full damages for goring? He holds the opinion of Tarfon, which you've had in the past. What does Rabbi Tarfon hold? Rabbi Tarfon holds the Amar Meshuna Karen b'Chashaniza. Remember, Karen is different in the courtyard of the damagee. And as the shoulder shaman, he says you pay full damages. So no problem. So it must be. So you're out and I'm in. One second. You cannot tell me that that the reason is that Rabbi Lazar is paying the full damages because Rabbi Tarfon and it's Karen. He says, wait a minute, one second. He says, how are you getting there? He says, my time, I'm chemist law, Rabbi Tarfon. What's the reason you're saying it's Rabbi Tarfon who said what? That Karen, strange damage, pays full damages in the domain of the damagee. Mishum nezik shalom because it's full damages. Rabbi Lazar, he says, you don't have to say that. I don't have to say that it was goring. I could say what? It's really your regular old stones. Your regular old stone. It's a walking and it's regular old stone. Okay, and a regular old stone. And the fire had to travel. Rabbi Lazar Soba Kasumchas. Rabbi Lazar who said that you're going to pay full damages. You know why? Because he holds like Sumchas. That's like Shomashon. He holds like Sumchas who says what? That you pay full damage. But 1 second. But then if you pay, but where do you? Since when do you ever pay full damages? From where? From the body. The answer is a new system that we've never learned before. They're introducing this is a new opinion we never learned before. The Sabur law, we're learning like what? Okay, to Rabbi Yehuda, he holds like Yehuda. The Amar Tzad Tamas b'Makoma Omedis. This is a tremendous chiddush. That we said up until now we understood. When an ox scores 3 times, the first 3 times it pays half damage from the body. When it scores the 4th time after it's been warned, it pays full damages from the estate. Rabbi Yehuda says no. He says the innocent side never disappears. First 3 times, half damages from the body. The 4th time after it's worn, pays full damages. But the first half continues paying what? From the body, and the second half from the estate. You see what's happening? So he says, now what? So Sumchas who's going to hold, it's going to be Sumchas who compares it, is going to say it's full damages. The Chik Tani, whenever Lezer said, the Gufo from the body, what? At Sad Thomas, he's saying what? The same thing. He's saying what? It's talking about a case where what? Okay, he holds it what that he pays full. It's not talking about the whole damage, but really what only for the half damage. Okay, for the half damage that came afterwards. So therefore, you don't have to say that it was Rabbi Tan. Amarle Rav Sama Bereid Rav Ashi Ravina says Imar the Shamas Rabbi Yehuda. So in 1 second, but Tommy says, "Get out of here! What are you talking about?" Rabbi Yehuda's whole idea was what that the Tom side remains, and even in a full payment, you pay half from the body and half from the estate. He said, "But Tom, the Nasa Muad. That's only by Tom that started out innocent and eventually became a Muad." But Muad mitchilaso. But a case like our case of damages, where he's paying what full damage from the start, okay, like Sumchos, okay, full damage from the start. He says Misha Masle, who says half and half. There was never a real half to start with. How can you say it? Ella, okay, you have to say like this. Okay, don't worry. He says if you want to explain the Mishnah having to do with stones, I can and prove to me that stones based on the body. You have to read it like this. Ki kam Rabbi Lazar. When did Rabbi Lazar say what that Nezek showing that you pay that you're going to pay full damage from the body? Okay, Kagondi Yide. It's a new idea. We didn't think of this before. That even half damages of stones, like we said, can become, even though later it's going to be a question, can become forewarned. So 3 times his animal damage from stones, kicking up stones and breaking things. The 4th time, okay, he's going to have to pay. And this is the argument. Rabbi Yehuda and the Tana of our Mishnah, of Rabbi Elazar and the Brisa, and the Tana of our Mishnah arguing, Marsav, Rabbi Elazar of the Brisa holds what? He holds what? Even though it's a query later, he holds that you can become forewarned the first 3 times it's you pay half damage, and the 4th time you're going to pay what? You're going to pay full damages, okay? And therefore what? Okay, so really what? Even though for the first couple times he pays half damages, okay, like the rabbis, okay, but if he did it if he became warned, so then for the 4th time forward he can pay full damages, okay, and that's why he paid full damages on the grain because he's been warned. And the half damage that and now it really is a case of what? Of starting out Tom and becoming Muad. Because the first 3 times he paid half damages. Now the 4th time he's paying full damages. We have a new idea that even Shroras can be Tom and become Muad. And therefore what? And it's announced like Rabbi Yehuda, we can answer that half of it he's paying from the body, and only the second half is he paying from and only the second half is he paying from the estate. When he said body means the first half. Umar Savar. But the Tana of our Mishnah holds ain't all the source. We can say our Mishnah holds there's no such thing that you even only by Karen can you become first 3 times not warned and then warned, but by Tzoros you can never become warned. Okay, the Gemara says he says 1 second. He says if that's the argument of the Tana of our Mishnah or Lazar, the boy Rava. So how could Rava have ever asked the question? Yesha Adu Tzoros or ain't Adu Tzoros, as we're going to see. He asks, is there anything by warning? He says, Ila Rabbanan ain't la adulterous. It's clear according to what we just said. According to the rabbis, there's no warning. Okay, the Talmud of our Mishnah. According to Lazar, there is warning for stone. So what's the question? He says no. He says He says when was I in doubt whether there's warning for a stone? I'll leave it to Rabbanan. I only asked that question according to the rabbis. The pliga allowed the my whole question was according to the rabbis. We said up to now what that I want to know if according to the rabbis there's warning. Why? That's the way you read it. Why? He says, okay, why is that? Because since they hold the Chatzi Nezek, you pay half damages, and I can be in doubt that maybe after 3 times you pay full damages. In this case, it's a really weird thing. He says over here by the dog that damaged the grain, Bain l'Rabbanan. Whether you say the rabbis, Bain l'Rabban Lazar, okay, Kasumchas Riyah. In this case, the rabbis and Lazar here are all really Sumchas people. The Amar Tzroros, because he holds it normal Tzroros, Nezek Shalom Mishalim. All the opinions here are really following who? Are really following Sumchas. And by Sumchas, there's no question. The time of my Amar Rabbana Chatzinasik, if they're holding Sumchas, so why did the rabbis hold half damages? The Shani V'lo Yain, I'll tell you why. Because it was done in a strange way. It was not a normal case of a normal damage. But it was strange. It was a strange way with the coal, okay, and therefore he pays half damage because it was like Karen. But the whole argument here is what is again is what's the din of Karen in a private domain where Rabbi Tafel you pay full damages, and the rabbis say you pay half damages. But so over here really everybody is Sumchas people. Now the Gemara says 1 second. Now I want to explain this outside, and I want to take a minute, and it'll be clear. One of the most famous arguments in the entire universe is something called Dio. Dio, what's a Kavachomer? Let's take a simple Kavachomer. If a weak guy can lift 5 pounds, a strong guy can lift 5 pounds. That's a Kavachomer. Certainly a strong guy can lift 5 pounds. Can I say if a guy who's half strong can lift 5 pounds, a doubly strong guy can lift, a guy who's much stronger can lift 10 pounds. So there's a rule called Dio. Dio says, listen, you can only learn from a Kal V'chomer, even though it may make sense to increase the magnitude of the thing that you learned out. We don't do it. That's what the rabbis say. Even though it makes sense to say, listen, if this guy can do 5, he can do 10, maybe, but we can only say if he can do 5, he can certainly do 5. That's a rule called Dio. It's sufficient. Dio labo minadin. It's sufficient for what comes from a derivation, lios kenidon, to be just like the thing that you derived it from. If the thing you derived from was 5 pounds, the derivation is 5 pounds. You're right. Maybe it can be more, but you can't do it. Okay. But later on, we're going to have a long discussion about it. That's called Dio. Rabbi Tarfon is famous for overruling this rule, and he says, in a case, we'll see in a minute. He says he can say the other way. So I'm going to give you an example of how he does it. How does Rabbi Tarfon say that goring pays full damages in the private domain? Where'd you learn such a thing? What did the Torah tell you about goring? When it's not forewarned, how much do you pay? Half damages. How can Rabbi Tarfon say if he gores a non-warned ox in the private domain pays full damages? Where'd you see it? He learned it from a Kal V'chomer. He said, listen, if when it comes to eating normally, shame, or damaging normally by regal, by trampling, we're in the public domain, it's so lenient that you're not obligated. You're not obligated for your animal trampling or for eating in the public domain. Nevertheless, in the private domain, they have to pay full damages. Certainly, when it comes to goring, which is much more severe, where even in the easy case, what was easy by these ones in public domain, he pays half damages. Certainly, he's going to get the law here of what in private domain of paying what? Full damages, just like eating. If eating and trampling, which pay nothing in the public domain, pay full damages in the private domain. Goring, which has to pay half damages in the public domain, certainly is going to pay full damages in the private domain. Now watch, slow down. Now, so according to that makes sense. But the rabbis say, no. Dio. That is not airtight. The best you can say is that the stronger case gets the rule of the weaker case. If the weak case, so you can say, listen, if goring has to pay half damage in public domain, it certainly has to pay half damages if we're shane and regal, if we're eating is exempt, goring pays half damages. Certainly, where eating is liable, you have to pay half damages. But you can't say here you pay double. Now, Rabbi Tarfon says no. Now, I'm going to tell you outside why. Because he has a rule. He says, you know what? I agree with you. I agree to the principle of Dio. I agree that you must limit the derivation to the magnitude of the derived. If the derived was 5, the derivation has to be 5. You can't say 5 to 10. He says, but I don't always agree. You know when I agree with you? When I can still employ the device of the Kal V'chomer. But if the Kal V'chomer has nothing to teach me, except going beyond the magnitude, then I must. So over here, take a look. Well, look at this. I have a beautiful Kal V'chomer. If we're eating and trampling is exempt in the private domain, they're obligated. Certainly, where goring is obligated, it's going to be obligated in what? In the private domain. But here, if I say it's obligated, the same thing as it was obligated in the public domain, I didn't learn anything. Why? Because you didn't see any place in the Torah that limited the obligation of goring to the public domain. It's just every place. It's not limited. So if I have a Kal V'chomer, it's like, no expression, all dressed up and no place to go. I got a Kal V'chomer, it's all dressed up and no place to go. Here, I got a Kal V'chomer, I'm not doing anything with it. Here, well, 1 second. If shane and regal are exempt in the public domain and obligated in the private domain, certainly goring, which is obligated in the public domain, is obligated in the private domain. I knew that. I don't need a Kal V'chomer to do it. So he says now, he says here, I ignore the principle of Dio. If I could have learned something from the Kal V'chomer without transgressing the limitation of Dio, I would have done it and I would agree with you. But since I have a Kal V'chomer all dressed up and no place to go, and there's nothing to learn unless I supersede the rule of Dio, I don't say dio. There's only one thing to learn here. If Karen, which pays half damages, where Shane and regular are potter, okay, it's certainly gonna. If where Shane and regular pay full damage, Karen's gonna pay what full damage because there's nothing else to learn. Its primary obligation is obvious, so therefore that's the argument of Rabbi Tarfon. Let's review. So the rabbis say we always say dio. Rabbi Tarfon says I'll say dio as long as I can employ a kavachomer. But the second that the kavachomer becomes useless, I will transgress dio. Now remember what I just said, because remember. But if he can use the kavachomer without transgressing dio, he will. Okay, he will, and and he will not transgress. He won't transgress the rule of dio. Now watch, get ready. So now the Gemara says, he says, how can you tell me what that this is Rabbi Tarfon? Okay, and that's why he's paying full damages in the private domain for Karen. When did you hear that Rabbi Tarfon supersedes, overrules the rule of dio? Okay, and that's pardon me. He says, when did Rabbi Tarfon say full damages? Okay, that we know. We know he said that because by the Kavachomer. But did you ever hear him saying what? That it pays full damages from the body? You're suggesting that this is Rabbi Tarfon. He's paying full damages and what? Okay, from the body. He says yes. You're going to pay full damages from the body. He says, what's the proof for Rabbi Tarfon? You pay from the body. Maybe once you're paying full damages in the private domain, you should pay for everything. The answer is no. He learns it Mikaren B'Rishus Harabim. He learns it from Goring in the public domain. He pays from the body. Okay, and because why? Watch, get ready. Rabbi Tarfon is going to learn it because he's going to employ the principle of dio. Dio labomin adin lios kenidon. You have to do it. If I'm learning Karen, if I'm learning from the public domain to the private domain, Karen in the public domain pays somewhere from the body. So even though I'm going to learn Karen in the private domain pays full damages, but I'm not going to learn it stronger than what? Than Karen in the public domain, which pays from the body. So the Gemara says, what? Well, Rabbi Tarfon, let's lay dio. What are you talking about? Rabbi Tarfon doesn't hold dio. I said, what's the source of from the body? Well, he learns it from Karen. Because dio, if Karen in the public domain pays to the body, so Karen in the private domain pays to the body. What are you talking about? He didn't say dio. How did he learn full damages? By ignoring dio, right? So why doesn't he ignore dio when it comes to the body and say he pays full damages from what? From the estate. The answer is what? He said, no. Ki lesle dio. When does Rabbi Tarfon not ignore dio? Heicha the mafrich kavachomer, where it utterly destroys our ability to use the kavachomer. So when it came to learning full damages, if I don't learn full damage, this kavachomer does nothing. It does nothing. I already knew that Karen's obligated in the private domain. So if I don't move to full damages and ignore dio, I won't have anything to learn. But once I've learned it, get ready. Okay, mafrich kavachomer is through dio, where it doesn't stop it. He holds dio. So now, since I've already employed the kavachomer to learn what? To learn full damages. I haven't diffused the kavachomer. And even Rabbi Tarfon will say, listen, hey dio, if it's only from the body in public domain, it remains from the body in the private domain. Incredible. There's a lot of argument. Gufa, boy, Rabba asked the following question. This is the last query. He says, the throwers graduate? Is it just like Karen that's 3 times half damages and afterwards full, or not? The Karen, should I compare it to Goring, which pays half damages and eventually becomes full? Or Dilma told it regularly the other way. No, I should compare it to its type of damage, which is like trampling, which it doesn't change its status. Whatever it pays at the beginning, it pays at the end, and that's it. So it's just like trampling pays full and never changes. This pays half and never changes. Toshma, come, I'll try and bring you a proof. We learned again the same Bryce. Hebrews, okay, and a muad, the muad, same thing. Hopping is not forewarned, and some people say it's forewarned. Again, the one says, what? Hopping, you can't have an argument about hopping. It's clearly just that damage by the body. You pay full damages. Ella, what? I went quickly because we said it 3 times already. Ella, it must be the case is what? Where it kicked it up and it kicked up the utensil and it broke later. And something else. My love, isn't that a case? They're going to Avad plus the Zimne. Pardon me, I'm sorry. And what? It moved it, and so it's stones, but what? And my love, what's the case? I'm going to read the word muad, meaning what? Whether you're going to pay full damage. My love, isn't the case? Kagon the Avad plus the Zimne. It kicked up these things 3 times. And this is the argument. My savar what? The one who says that it's forewarned, he holds what? That even Chatzin Ezek source eventually becomes warned and pays full damages. Umar, and the one who says that it's not forewarned, so that even after 3 times, ain't other, there's no warning, okay, there's no warning. So you see that the query of Rava is the Bryce. It's the 3rd time they try to do this to him. No, he said, nah, I don't have to read it that way. B'chad zimna. I can read it as one time. Just like you said, we said all along, it's just the same old argument of it's regular old kicking it up and rolling away and breaking and it's stones. And it's the classic argument of Sumchas and the rabbis. Sumchas says the tradition is what? Stones pay, kicked up stones pay half damages, and the rabbis argue and they all what? And the rabbis say what? Kicked up stones pay. Sumchas says full damages, and the rabbis say half damages. One more, we got a minute. Okay, Toshma. Okay, I'll try and prove you one more time whether they become forewarned. An animal defecated right on top of the dough, and obviously ruined the dough. Okay, so that looks like what? Stones. It's a force generated by the animal. Rehuda says you pay full damages. Rav says half damages. My love. No, what's the case? So how could you have an argument about it? What's going on over here? My love, isn't the case what? They say, isn't that exactly the argument? It 3 times defecated in a stone's way onto it, and that's the argument. Mahar Sabra, Yehuda said what? That you pay full damages. He holds Yesha Ada. He holds that even what? Even the damage of stones eventually becomes forewarned, and you pay full damages. Umar Sabra and Rabbi Lazar hold what? That one ain't Ada, that there's no warning and it always pays half damage. Where it says, I don't have to say that that's the argument. B'chad zimna, I could say what? It did it only one time. I said, how can you argue whether it pays half damages or full damages? But look at the sufas, the same thing we said before. It's the same old argument. It's regular old stone dropping, defecating into the dough is stone, and it's the argument. Sukkah says you pay full damage for stones, and the rabbis say you pay half damages. One second. Well, Mashuno, come on, this is not weird. This is not weird. This is not not stone. Stones is like regular, it has to be normal damage. This is not normal. What damage goes around defecating into the dough? Well, says no, you're right. It should be it should be goring, says no. In this case, it's talking where it's normal. Why? The animal happens to be pinned in and it can't walk away. So to defecate onto the dough beneath it when it can't walk away is normal, and therefore it's considered to be what? If it's normal for the animal to do that, that's considered stones. This is a beautiful point. Now, the way we're saying it now, the argument is really what is whether you hold sumchos or the rabbis. Remember, I mentioned you a few times. After the Tanaim, any rabbi has a right to paskin like a Tana, but he can't fight a Tana by himself. Now, these rabbis use the long language. It looks like they're stating their own opinions rather than ruling like the Tana. You said this one holds like sumchos. Maybe these are Amoraim. These are not. These are later rabbis. So why, if this one held like Sumchas and this one held like the rabbis, why did he speak as if respectively, as if he's going against? One's going against Sumchas, one against the rabbis. You can't do that. Why didn't they say he should what? The lame Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda should have said the halacha follows Sumchas. I'm saying like I'm not fighting the rabbis. I paskin the halacha is like Sumchas. The lame Rabbi Lazar halacha Rabbanan. That Rabbi Lazar say what? The halacha is like the rabbis. Not he's paskin against Sumchas. He says. I not that he's personally fighting sofas. I hold like the rabbis. The answer is galal means terichale. You're right. Really, if their goal was to rule, they would have said that. They said, "I rule like him. I rule like him." But that wasn't the thrust of their argument. The main thrust was what really what galal means terichale. Their main point was to tell you that defecating onto the dough is subject to the argument of sumchas and the rabbis. Since I would have thought since feces start in the body in the body of the animal, it's just like a piece of its body, and even when they fall out, it's still the body of the animal doing direct damage to gufe dame. And I think that feces are the animal's body. It's not indirect. It's not by the force of the animal, by force created. It is the animal. That's its body. Okay, Kamash Malan came to tell me no. This also is called the force of the animal, and it's subject to the argument of Sumchas and the rabbis. Okay, and that's a good stop. Thank you. These are big pages. I can't help myself. There's gigantic things on these pages. I just want to make a little disclaimer here. There are a number of nuances. First, I think I'm going to say something backwards before. You'll figure that out yourself. But there are a number of nuances that I did not get involved in, not because they're not important, because it would have been utterly confusing. In this context, not, talk to you, thank you. These are the pieces in yeshivas. Blood flows over these pieces.
Oh, yeah.
People. This is like this is Marshall. The Last Man Standing
Hey, you
fights
want
on
me
this.
home? No. Interesting, they bring up Ralph Sama, the son of Rav.
Yeah, beautiful, right. I didn't take notice of that. Beautiful boy.